Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 657, 657, January the 9th, 2018, Wednesday. And you know what happens on Wednesday? Take out the trash and have me a little pasta. Pasta and trash, that's what I do on Wednesday. Well, my friends, it's about 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in about 1 hour. On Tuesday night. In about 1 hour, Trump will be addressing the nation on the issue of the humanitarian and security crisis on the border with Mexico. It's unclear now exactly what he's going to tell us, other than he's going to give us the facts and make the case for why we have a national emergency. He may even declare a national emergency. Now, that's not, martial law or anything like that. Many presidents have declared a national emergency. Hurricanes, natural, events caused, from natural causes and things and such, weather-related events, 9/11, these types of things can generate. In fact, they don't always publicly even announce Hurricane Katrina. They never publicly announced that we had a national emergency, but we were under a national emergency, and it gives the president certain powers when you're under a national emergency, but it's not like martial law. It just gives the president some additional resources that he can tap into under the mantle of a national emergency. Now, it's not clear at this point whether there's two things that may be going on here. One may be that Trump is just wanting to make his case directly to the American people to cut through the noise and the propaganda and the smear campaign that's been going on by the left over this issue. So it may be that he just wants to lay out the case directly to the American people, unfiltered, to try to put pressure on the Democrats to make a deal. Because ultimately, as he has said, he wants this to be resolved with the Congress. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm pretty sure he knows it's not going to happen. So this just may be his last-ditch effort to show people, before he actually does it on his own, that he gave every possible measure that he could take to try to get the Democrats to come to the table and deal with the issue. And he wants to make sure everyone understands before he does something that it is a serious issue, that it is a crisis, it is a serious national emergency, what we have going on the border. Has been for a long time, but it's been ignored by both parties because they don't want a secure border. So it could be, number one, that he just wants to make the case and deal directly with the American people and give them the facts. That could be it. But it could also be that he is going to announce that he has found the financial resources to go ahead with the wall, and that he doesn't need the Democrats to appropriate the money because he's already tapped into money that was already appropriated from other departments, and he's now used the authority he has to grab up that money to go ahead and continue the building the border wall or barrier, steel fence, whatever you want to call it. So it's not clear which of these two things that he's going to do, or possibly both. Obviously, he's going to make the case to the American people that we have a serious crisis on the border that needs to be addressed and the politics need to end. He's going to lay out the facts and make the case. What's not clear is whether or not he's going to take the measure beyond that and say, based on all this, and based on the fact that the Democrats are not willing to negotiate, they're not showing up to negotiations, they're not taking it seriously, they've left me no choice but to go ahead and find some money that's already been appropriated, which I can use to go ahead with this. I would prefer to have done it with the Congress, but it simply isn't happening, and we have a crisis, and so I'm at the point now where I have no choice but to do it this way. So this is what we are waiting to find out here in about an hour. Is it just to inform us about the crisis and to try to build pressure against the Democrats to force them to the table to cut a deal, or is he past that measure and he's going to inform us that we have a crisis that it doesn't seem like it's going to be resolved in the Congress, and so he is taking measures, which he has the authority to do, to take money which has already been approved by the Congress, that he's been able to put together from other departments in the government, and maybe he'll take it from the defense budget. Who knows? So it's just not clear exactly what is going to be what he's going to tell us. But I kind of get the feeling that if he just comes out and makes the case, and this is just an effort to try to put pressure on the Democrats to negotiate, force them to the table, and make them come off the money or appropriate the money, I think that's going to be disappointing to a lot of people who support him. I think what most people want to see him do is lay out the crisis, address the issue, and then say, and because of that, and because the Democrats are not participating or not willing to negotiate, I'm going to go ahead and take action on my own. I'm going to take money that's already been appropriated, and I'm going to go ahead and get the program rolling. I think that's what people really want to hear. And I think, or at least certainly his supporters, and I think if that happens, he will win really, really big. Now, maybe he plans on doing that anyway. Maybe he plans on addressing the nation and then going to the border on Thursday, and then he comes back, and having given his speech, given his address, he gives the Democrats 3, 4, 5 days to see if they take it seriously, to see if they come to the table, and if they don't, then he appropriates the money, takes the money which has been appropriated, and goes forward on his own. So it's unclear whether this is the one step or the two step, but it's ultimately coming. Ultimately, if the Democrats do not come to the table, he's going to get the money somewhere else and go ahead with it anyway. So whether it's the one-step plan or the two-step plan, ultimately that's how it's going to end up. Because ultimately, I don't think that the Democrats are going to give him a penny for the wall. Just they're dug in, and I don't know how they can possibly back down. Even if they change the name of it from a wall to a fence, I think they're too dug in. I think they're too in their position. I can't see them backing off. But I think Trump would win big if he would just come out tonight and say, look, I've tried to work with the Democrats. They're not willing. We have a serious crisis. I'm declaring a national emergency. I've been able to find the money that's already been appropriated, and I'm taking this executive action. And that's what I'm going to do, and here's why I'm doing it. And then, of course, over the next couple of days, the Senate can bring up their bills. They can appropriate the rest of the money, get the government back open again so that he avoids that. He can then even take credit for ending the government shutdown by finding a solution to the problem, and he can also take credit for finding a solution to the original problem, which is the border crisis. So he can claim 2 victories in one fell swoop. It would be a huge win for him, a huge victory for him, and I hope that's what he does. I hope that's what he does. And I think it would be a big win because we already know the overwhelming majority of people believe that we do have serious problems on the border, and that they need to act. They need to take action. And what are we talking about? Everyone knows what we're talking about. Secure the damn border. Whether you do it with, drones, the military, walls, fences, doesn't matter. A combination of everything, whatever it takes, seal the damn border. It's been going on for way too long. And I think this is where people are. They're frustrated. Just seal the damn border already. Build the fucking wall already. Who cares? People are fed up. They're tired of hearing it. They've seen it. We've been dealing with this now for 30 some odd years. People are just sick of hearing about it. Either fix the damn problem or shut up and stop talking about it. That's how I think that's where I am. I think most people are the same place. Don't even want to hear about it anymore. Either secure the damn border or stop talking about it. And I think that's where most people are. And I think that Trump would win big if he comes out tonight and says, yeah, we got a crisis, and I'm going to deal with it. It's been going on too long. I'm going to use executive authority. I found the money, and I'm going to put the money to use. We're going to build the damn fence, wall, whatever you want to call it. He would win huge with his base. His base would love him. In fact, of all the things he's done, that might be the most popular thing with his base that he will have done up to this point in his presidency. He's also going to get a lot of independents who are not really left or right or Republican or Democrat, just independent, who many times are common sense, rational people, will say probably good. I'm glad the president took some initiative. He's right. This deal has been getting kicked around for a long time. It's high time that someone just deal with the problem, even if there's political consequences. deal with the problem. A lot of people will be like that, and they like seeing a strong president take action to deal with the problem that's been getting kicked down the road for decades. I think he'll win big with independents. He will also win big with a lot of Democrats. There's a lot of Democrats, believe me. There's a lot of Democrats out there who know that we have a big problem. We do have a crisis on the border. They also know this thing's been kicked around for decades, and they're sick of it too. So there's even Democrats that will fall in line and say, yes, I'm glad Trump took action and did something. It's about time. So I see this as a huge win. I see no way in which he loses. If he comes out tonight and says, yes, we have a crisis, here are the facts, and here's what I'm going to do about it. I'm taking action. I hope that's what he does. We'll know here in about 45 minutes what he's going to do. I'll know. Actually, you guys, by the time you see this video, you'll know, right? So I'm doing this video on Tuesday night at about 8 o'clock. So we'll find out here shortly what he's going to do, and of course we'll talk about that more tomorrow after we've had a chance to evaluate what he said. One thing that's kind of unusual about this is typically when a president does a State of the Union, you'll get the Democratic rebuttal, but not typically when a president addresses the nation on an issue of national interest. You rarely see a rebuttal from the other party because it's generally not seen as a partisan thing. It's generally seen as a national security issue or some issue which transcends political parties. So it's pretty rare that you see a rebuttal from the Democrats, but Nancy and Chuck have demanded a rebuttal. So obviously we're going to get Trump, and then right after that, it looks like we're going to get Nancy and Chuck, who are going to try to come out and I guess, I don't know what they're going to try to do, contradict what Trump has just said will be my guess, and try to say there is no crisis on the border, and it's just Trump trying to, get his wall or whatever. So I think it's, again, that's unprecedented for the media to do that, but it shouldn't surprise us because, quite honestly, they can't allow Trump to directly connect with the American people and lay out the facts. They can't let that happen. They have to do something to make a mess of that if they possibly can. So they'll do the best they can, and I guess that's all they can do. Put Nancy and Chuck on and hope they can, spin the narrative. We'll see how that works out for them. Governor Ron DeSantis was sworn in today in Florida. The very first thing he did was alert Sheriff Scott Israel that he would be suspended. He is suspending Scott Israel. Now, I understand this is just it's a first step in ultimately firing, getting rid of Scott Israel. I guess he can't do it in one fell swoop or something. He's got to do it in a two-step or three-step process. But obviously, it's his intention to get rid of Scott Israel, to get him out of there, and he should. The man's a disgrace and a disaster. He should have been held accountable for that shooting down there. He and his department acted in a cowardly fashion. They failed the citizens. They should never be in law enforcement. They're the wrong people in the wrong job. So DeSantis has suspended Scott Israel on his very first act as governor, and I suspect his firing will be coming up shortly. Well, it looks like the Trump administration has downgraded the EU's status in the official registry of diplomatic protocols. In other words, the EU diplomats or diplocrats, whatever you want to call them, the EU diplomats, the diplomatic delegation from the European Union, has now been deemed pretty much non-important. Non-important. They're no longer on the list of what you'd say VIPs or meant to be taken as sort of serious. In other words, they've been pretty much moved to the very back of the bus. And this has a lot to do, it's following up on a speech that Pompeo made where he was basically calling out the bureaucrats in Brussels at the EU for placing the interest of the bureaucrats in Brussels before the countries and the citizens in the Eurozone. And so this is a follow-up to that speech, really. So it looks like the Trump administration has basically told the EU, you're really not all that important anymore. We really don't have much to say to you anymore. From this point forward, we're pretty much going to ignore you. How embarrassing for the EU bureaucrats in Brussels, and well deserved. After all, they're totally ineffective. Actually, they're defective. Well, the rumor mill is saying that preparations are underway in conservative circles for the retirement of Ruth Buzzy Ginsburg. It looks like that Weekend at Jenny's situation may be exactly what we thought, that Ginsburg, again out today, may not be coming back. Her surgery may have went okay, but maybe her recovery is not going okay. It's the third time she's had cancer. It's hard to imagine at her age and her general physical health that she's going to come back from this. And it sounds like a lot of people, the whispers in Washington are that she's probably done. How long she can stay AWOL without having to actually announce that she's resigning, I don't know how long, but I don't think it's going to be 2 years. She might be able to pull it off for a few more weeks or maybe a couple of months. But ultimately, if she doesn't show up and doesn't come up with a good reason why she can't show up, ultimately she needs to step down, and we'll have to step down. And so Trump will be appointing a new Supreme Court justice before 2020. And the Democrats and Ginsburg herself are doing everything they can to avoid that. But it just may not work out. It may not work out. It appears that Uncle Bob, the executioner, has passed on the case of Veselnitskya and this deal with Prevezon Holdings to the Southern District of New York, formerly headed up by Preet Bharara. He's gone now. He's been fired by Trump, but his folks are still there, and we know what they're all about. They're probably more anti-Trump than Uncle Bob. And so it looks like that they have indicted Maria Veselnitskya for obstruction of justice, for submitting misleading information to the Department of Justice in a civil case involving her client, Prevezon Holdings. What's going on here? Let me tell you what's going on here, having followed this story quite closely and having done many deep dives on Maria Veselnitskya. Here's what's going on. Uncle Bob, the executioner, is desperate to get Trump. But he can't get Trump, so he's going to the next best thing, Trump Jr. So he was working really hard to try to flip Manafort, to get Manafort to sign on to the narrative Uncle Bob wanted him to sign on to, which would place Trump Jr. into a situation where Uncle Bob could say that Trump Jr. lied when he was being questioned. In other words, tried to get Manafort to flip on Trump Jr., but he didn't and wouldn't. So then the next person they went to work on was Veselnitskya. But Veselnitskya also would not tell Uncle Bob what he wanted to hear and would not sing the tune. And then, after that, she went on Fox News and did an interview where she basically gave information that would throw a huge wrench into the spokes of Uncle Bob at his having any chance of making the case that Trump Jr. lied to him about the Trump Tower meeting or what may have taken place and why, and any communications he may have had. So, obviously, Veselnitskya is a problem because she's got information that will throw a wrench in Uncle Bob's spokes in his effort to pigeonhole Trump Jr. into a conviction, or at least an indictment, for lying to the FBI or lying to Mueller or whatever. So the reason that they're indicting Veselnitskya is they want to make sure she stays right where she is, in Russia. They know that she won't come back to the United States now because she's under indictment. So she won't be coming back. And that's exactly what they want to make positively sure of. They don't want Veselnitskya coming back here and talking, because what she has to say could throw a huge wrench into the spokes of Uncle Bob's report, his interim report. So this was merely a tactic to keep someone away who could throw a wrench into the spokes of Uncle Bob's report, which he's working on right now, which is going to try to show some, collusion between Trump Jr. or Trump or someone else. So whatever she's got to say doesn't fit Uncle Bob's narrative, and they want to make sure that she doesn't come over here and start talking. They want to make sure that she stays in Russia and keeps her mouth shut. That's what's going on here, because they know that they'll never get a chance to see her in court. She's not going to come back here and stand for, to face charges. It's not going to happen. And she knows what's going on as well. She knows exactly what this is. This is a stay in Russia and keep your mouth shut deal. That's what's going on here. So that's just a big smokescreen, but that's the truth about what's really happening, and that's why they hit her up on this again on this charge of obstruction. That's what's going on there. Well, we have Gavin Newsom and Bill de Blasio from New York and California, newly elected, both of them making announcements in their initial speeches, inaugural speeches, saying that they are offering now health care for everyone in their state. Healthcare, free healthcare for everyone in the state, including illegals. California and New York. Free healthcare in California and New York, including for illegals. Hey, you know what? I don't know about you, but I may cancel my health insurance. Why have it? I'll just pay out of pocket for any prescriptions that I need, or my once a year physical, or my twice a year getting my teeth cleaned. I'll just pay out of pocket and save myself all them premiums. And then if something really bad happens to me, I'll just go to New York or California for some free treatment. Free health insurance in California and New York, my friends. Cancel your plans. Don't have to worry about that catastrophic health event. All you got to do is get a plane ticket to Cali or New York, and you'll get free everything, even if you're illegal. How do you think that's going to work out? John Huber has until the 21st of January to submit the documents and the information requested by Meadows and Jordan. What happens if he doesn't? My guess is nothing. WikiLeaks has made an official denial of any Russian collusion. Also, they deny having anything to do with Russian collusion in relation to the DNC emails or the Podesta emails. In other words, there was no Russian contact, no Russian involvement whatsoever, and the Russians had nothing to do with the acquisition of those emails, nor the release of those emails relating to the DNC and John Podesta. In other words, they didn't come from the Russians, they came from someone else. I think we know who that someone else was. I think his name was Seth Rich. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. He also said, and this is official through WikiLeaks official spokesperson, never has WikiLeaks had any contact with Donald Trump Jr., Roger Stone, Jerome Corsi, or Paul Manafort, etc., etc. In other words, all the characters that are supposedly associated with WikiLeaks or the Russian collusion delusion. WikiLeaks official statement, no truth to it at all. None at all. But we already knew that. It's just a witch hunt. And it's kind of interesting, you know, when Giuliani was on Fox about a week ago, and he basically defended Assange. He said, hey, you know, WikiLeaks is just a publisher. All they did was publish information given to them. I don't know whether they did anything wrong. And that's Trump's friend and lawyer. My guess is Trump feels probably the same way. Remember, during the campaign, he loved WikiLeaks. Loved WikiLeaks. Ed Buck, the pervert and probably murderer, friend of the rotten Reverend Clinton, who just recently had the second gay black escort show up dead at his home, has now got an attorney who is saying that Mr. Buck was only counseling the young men. He was counseling them. I don't know, but if there was a dude out there doing counseling and his patients had a tendency to die in the home of the counselor, I don't think I would be seeking his counsel. How about you? How many of you believe that Ed Buck was counseling young male, black male gay escorts? How many of you think that Ed Buck was counseling these young black male escorts? And what sort of technique or activities do you think were involved in these counseling sessions? You think they involved drugs and alcohol and other things? It appears that this Judge Dabney Friedrich, who is the person hearing the case of Concord Management and the 12 Russian trolls, which are currently being indicted by Uncle Bob. He indicted them because he thought they would never show up to court, but they did. It surprised him, and now that case is turned into a circus act. But it appears that the judge, hearing that case, it appears that the judge's husband is good buddies with Uncle Bob, the executioner, and also really good buddies with Andrew Weissman. In fact, her husband, Mr. Friedrich, worked with the team headed up by Weissman in the Ted Stevens case, which was, of course, thrown out of court. Then we have Kevin Spacey, who appeared in court yesterday on the charge of sexual assault, and it appears that his defense is going to be that the sexual flirting was consensual with this 18-year-old male. So he's flirting with an 18-year-old male, and I don't know what Spacey is, but probably in his 50s, maybe close to 60. But it appears that Spacey was flirting with this 18-year-old male, and Kevin Spacey's defense is not going to be that he did not do it, because I believe they got videotape, but that it was consensual. It just seems to me, though, if the guy that's filing the charge against him is saying it was sexual assault, then clearly it wasn't consensual. Maybe Spacey's going to make the argument that at the time, this person led him to believe that it was consensual and that everything was cool. My guess is that's the only defense he's got. I'm not so sure it's going to fly, but then again, it is New York or somewhere, Massachusetts. Where is this? I'm not really sure where this is, but it's somewhere where they'll find a liberal judge who'll go, "Oh, Kevin Spacey. Hey, Kevin Spacey, one of Hillary's friends, part of the deep state, one of the pedophiles, part of the ring, could probably bring a lot of people down. Probably not going to be able to do anything to him. He'll probably walk just like Harvey Weinstein and all their friends, because that's what they do. They walk. They commit crimes and they walk. They're in the protected class because they have enough dirt on enough people that they can take down enough people. They got a lifetime get out of jail free card. It's good to have a lot of dirt on a lot of powerful people. Just as long as they don't decide to silence you at some point. Okay, so some more information on the mysterious envelope at the Bush funeral. We're getting more and more information now. So a lot of people have been questioning who was this military officer that was there when the Bush family arrived, and he's the one who led them to the church until the Secret Service came in and kind of took over. But you see him around, and he's this, really straight-laced looking military officer, and a lot of people wondering exactly who this guy is. So you can look at his Wikipedia page, and his name is Michael L. Howard, Major General Michael Howard. He is the general for the Military District of Washington. His duty is to oversee state funerals. Everything about him looks perfectly legit to me. He's got one hell of a background. Paratrooper, Ranger, commanded battalions in Afghanistan and Iraq. Highly decorated, looks like a stellar military career. Looks like a very straight-laced, solid, type, straight-up military type character. Probably nothing conspiratorial there. That's his job. He didn't just do this at the Bush funeral, but he was also there at the Ford funeral. We know Ford was one who died, and he was there for the family of the Ford family. So this is apparently his role. His job is to, I guess, meet or greet the family when they arrive, and to escort them to the entrance where then the Secret Service takes over, I guess. But so nothing really unusual about that. It's just this is the guy who's in charge there. He's no plant or any type of secret military intelligence insider or anything like that. He's just a career, he's a major general, has a stellar military career. This is his job. It's part of his function as his job. And that's all he was doing that day, nothing unusual. We have identified the two individuals not by name, but exactly what they are, not who they are, but the two individuals that were standing behind W, Laura, and Jeb, the two guys that everybody's wanting to know who they were. They were Secret Service agents, and the way that we know that is because Secret Service agents have a lapel pin that's just for Secret Service agents. Both of those guys have the Secret Service lapel pin. Question is, whose Secret Service are they? Were they Trump's Secret Service people or Bush's Secret Service people? Because one thing has been noticed by people who have watched literally all that footage of the funeral and focused really hard on every time that these two guys came into the frame. And what has been noticed is that they were constantly focused totally on either W, Laura, and Jeb, or Trump. They were constantly either looking directly at the Bushes or occasionally look over at Trump. Back to the Bushes. So they were constantly looking from Trump to the Bushes. Very, very suspicious about that. And it's not suspicious, though, for the Secret Service to never take their eyes off whoever they're supposed to be working for. In this case, we're not sure if it was Trump or the Bushes, because they kept looking at the Bushes, but then they'd look over at Trump. So there's something unusual going on there. They're kind of shady-looking characters for Secret Service agents, but they seem to be very interested, and that's their job, is to watch all the time. Because if you remember, even when the casket was coming by, they never took their eyes off of W, Laura, and Jeb. The casket coming by, everybody else's heads turned like this, watching the casket, not the two Secret Service agents. They're focused totally on Jeb, Laura, and W, other than the occasional look over at Trump. They look at Trump, they look back at the Bushes. Their eyes were, that's the only two places those guys' eyes were during the entire funeral. Looking at Trump or looking at the Bushes. Very interesting. A lot of people wondering why the Right Reverend Clinton released really old Christmas pics and New Year's Eve pics as opposed to something current. That's kind of weird, really. No question about it. It's quite strange. But the Obamas did the same thing. They released a Christmas pic from 2014. And we also know that the Right Reverend Clinton has recently started accepting direct messages on her Twitter or Facebook or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. I assume that's Facebook. So, yeah, just a few interesting things there. I don't know what to make about that. But, you know, continue to look at this situation. And no one seems to have figured out what was in them envelopes or on the notes or whatever. But people continue to look, and maybe eventually somebody will find something that really stands out that gives some better clue. We just know that some very high-level people got some notes, and they all acted in a very extraordinary fashion. Extraordinarily troubled and, you know, something bad. We know it was something bad, something alarming, something horrifying maybe. Shocking. Definitely not good. Hopefully we'll learn that someday. The media silence is deafening. It's like crickets. Everyone knows about this. Everyone. It's a hell of a mystery. A lot of people have to be curious, whether you're in the legit media or whether you're in the corporate media. Everyone has to be curious. It's strange that no one's asking any questions but me and a few other YouTubers. No one in the corporate media will even touch it. I haven't even heard Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, or any of those people even bring it up. So it's kind of interesting. It should be noted, just as we're waiting for Trump's speech, it should be noting that the Democrats voted for the Secure Fence Act in 2006 when W. Bush was president. Most all Democrats voted to reauthorize the Secure Fence Act in 2012 when Obama was the president. But for some reason now, they don't want a secure fence. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate, and we'll find out what Trump has to say And we'll be back tomorrow, and I'll be back tomorrow, and we'll talk about it. Thanks so much for tuning in. You guys have a good night. See you. Bye.